everyone, and welcome to the Escapist Communicast. Today is the difficulty cast. Hopefully we can get through it. I have with me... first of all, I am Hazabaz1, but you can call me Jack. I have with me Zvomp.
Well, thank you. You actually managed to say it. And you can call me Martin or Swede. It doesn't matter which one.
I like Swede. We have Aerosteam.
Hello. This is my first time here. I'm really scared. It's going to be super difficult.
Oh, don't be.
Hello.
It'll be fine. We have, I think it'd be Mountain Gamer is the way to say it.
Yep, hi. I was formerly known as Y Kumri on the Escapists, but I changed it to Mountain Gamer so you can pronounce it. But you can just call me Jesse.
And we have his roommate, who I don't know his Escapist name.
My Escapist name is Dragon of Fate, but you can just call me Ben.
I love your
Awesome.
voice, by the way.
I get that a lot for some reason.
It's very much like Joshua Vanderwall's voice.
Yeah, you do sound like him.
Yeah.
I have no idea who that is.
Me neither.
He's one of the Escapist staff. Probably does like reviews or something.
Yeah,
now you mentioned it. I can
he's
think
the
of
magic
voice.
player that's nicknamed the Destroyer of Worlds.
Oh, Jesus.
That's him, yeah.
Well, anyway, let's go on the cast. So, first question of difficulty, probably the simplest one that we can ask. Easy, normal, hard. What do you pick as a general term?
Easy.
Hard.
Alright.
Easy because I know I'm going to be spoiled by this game story as soon as I go on the internet for like Mass Effect or something. So I go on easy just to plow through the story as quick as I can. And then when I want to actually play the game properly, that's after I actually complete the game.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I do the same thing. If it has a narrative, I'll play it on easy first, get through the game, and then I'll ramp up the difficulty after that.
Martin? Sorry.
Oh, you go ahead first, Ben.
I've got to play it on hard. I've got to have that kind of challenge. I tend to avoid the internet spoilers like entirely while I'm playing the game, but I also tend to obsess and put the first 60 hours in the first week. So.
Wow.
Goodness. Well, myself, it usually depends on the game too, but it also depends on the genre. Actually, if it's like a fighter or something like that, I know I'm bad at them, but I love them, so I'm gonna do it on normal to still have some challenge, but it's gonna take a long time. But otherwise, I love the story too much to actually have the gameplay get too hard, so it's either normal or lower for me usually.
So for myself, it's never not hard mode.
Yeah.
If I unlock a new difficulty and the game is fun, I'm like straight on that. We'll learn more about that later on, but...
The only reason why I would pick hard is... I'm a bit of an achievement hunter, so I'd only choose the difficult option afterwards if there's an achievement to do with it, because if there isn't, then I'm just not going to bother. Yeah, because if I complete a game on hard, I have nothing really to show for it, because like I've completed Call of Duty World at War on the Nintendo Wii.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was really, really difficult. And
You poor soul.
yeah, so it was hard because obviously it's on the Wii, and it's Call of Duty World at War on Veteran, which is basically dodge the grenade to the game. And I have nothing to show to everyone. Hey, look, I completed this on Veteran. But I when I completed it, I was really happy with myself, but I can't really get, I can't really show anyone that I did this, because there is no achievements on the Wii.
So, I guess that's the first general question out of the way. We've established who goes for what. And I think we should go, next question, good difficulty. There's good difficulty and there's bad difficulty. We're looking for examples of good difficulty right now. Stuff that is, fair but difficult and doesn't punish you for being, playing a game or still being challenging.
I can come up with two good games that would fall under fair. For example, I've been playing Red Dead Redemption, and there's a lot of side missions going between main missions, and you can generally tell if something is not right. Because, for example, you're going to a broken wagon and there's a woman waving her arms. There's a 1 in 2 chance she needs help, or 1 in 2 chance you're going to be jumped by bandits. you can generally go into the situation cautious. If you ride in, you'll get punished severely and you will die quick. And there have been quite a lot of times where I'm riding on the main road and I just see something, I don't prep for it, and I just die. So it's a game that punishes you for just taking a second to think before you ride into a specific situation. And then recently, my roommate and I were playing Lara Croft, The Guardian of Light.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Which is, for everyone listening, right now it's free on Xbox Live Gold. But I have it on Steam. But, well, now I have it on both consoles. But anyway, it's a game where the puzzles can be a little bit tricky, but if you die, it resets you almost at the point where you were just at.
Yeah.
So there's some difficulty, but because you don't have to wait to respawn, you don't have to wait for a countdown, you get right back into the game. It's the kind of game where you don't feel angry for being wrong or doing it wrong.
Yeah, there's some insta-deaths, but it doesn't matter because you're right back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that game. I love Lara Croft and Guardian of Light. It's so good, and the satisfaction you get from actually working together. Because if you play it alone, you do get the gear to actually, like, you get his spear to actually be able to do the different things that Totek does. So I mean, you can finish it on your own, but doing it together is so great. Like, just turning to your co-op partner and just said, like, dude, get on my rope right now.
Yes, Ben has yelled at me quite a few times for that.
Get on the body.
I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to do something else, and he's like, "Just do it." Okay.
I remember playing that game with a friend, and even though like he didn't play games very often and wasn't fantastic, like one big section I remember was you like on a bridge, and then a big rolling ball comes down to you.
Oh yeah.
And you have to like go onto the side and like jump and just hold to the side and wait for it to go down. We couldn't figure it out for a while, for like 10 times, and we were just experimenting, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
Even though it was like an obscure method to finish it, because eventually it's like, oh yeah, we just do this, of course.
Or you go to the end of the bridge. Actually, that my friend did that, and I was like, I don't even know how to do that until he did that. Like, because you can hold where it like connects to wherever the end part was.
Right.
I forgot about that, and then it just falls over, and it's like, that's brilliant. That is so smart.
There's one similar to that where it's on an angle and you have to dodge it. But Ben figured out how to get around it, so I would just get killed and then he would keep going, and I would just spawn later.
Yep.
Pro teamwork.
Hey, if one of us lives, we both get to respawn.
True.
Yeah, right.
It's a very good dynamic between me and Ben, because he's the good pro gamer and I'm the guy who isn't good but doesn't care. So like in Halo or another game that's co-op, he'll do something and he'll have me do something else. Like, I need someone to get shot in the head so I can tell what the sniper is. Jesse, go forward. Okay. Or Jesse, go over here and test this out. I don't care. There might be a bomb there.
This is sounding eerily similar to me and my friend.
He makes a good
So
spotter.
it's like, yeah. I don't get frustrated by it, so it's a good way to help reduce the difficulty of the game by having someone who just doesn't care.
That does help.
So what I'm hearing though is that the good difficulty of Lara Croft, since it is a puzzle game more or less. I mean, there's fighting, but for me, the biggest challenge was actually the mental puzzles of figuring out Lara needs to hold onto this ring and then like walk around like this pillar to create like a line, and then Totek can walk on it or something like that. And I think that the core element to actually make a good difficulty game, because it can be very challenging sometimes. But as you said, like the quick respawn is like essential to actually just quickly get into the action again. And do you think that would have made it a lot more frustrating if the actual load time was maybe checkpoints at larger intervals or something like that? Would have that
If
have
I had
made
to
the
restart
game...
the level every single time, I wouldn't have played that game, because there were some puzzles where we would die 10, 20 times more than halfway through a level. And so instantly respawning was a real advantage there.
Yeah, because the absolute worst thing in co-op is you having to restart a bit of the game because whoever you're playing with dies, and then both of you gets punished for it.
Yeah, the fun factor would go down because if I'm a very fun player, I like to go and just do stupid stuff. If it was a game where I would be severely punished for doing that, I would be doing everything Ben told me to do and be serious, but then I would lose the fun of that game.
Yeah.
I would lose out for it.
You'd lose the
Don't play
play.
Gears of War 2 on hard difficulty with a friend. Because if like Dom goes down and he's out of cover, it's like, well, time to restart.
Well, I'd like to play Gears of War 2, but it lost my save data.
Dave Sater.
Save data. It's the meta data.
We're on the ball here. Okay, well then I actually have a counter argument then, because like you said, if you had to start over, like what you said, Ben, like if you had to start over the level, or like from a point maybe very far beyond where you were, you had to like you basically lost everything and you have to go back and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
What about Dark Souls then? That basically does that to you all
That's
the time.
different.
It does it to you
How
all
is
the
it
time, but you learn each time, and you get a little better at it. And also, it's not co-op, so you don't. It's not your partner's fault, and you don't have to restart because your partner screwed up. It's
Okay.
co-op to a point, but if your partner dies, he can just come back.
If I could like compare the two games, like Lara Croft, if you had to restart and die, you'd go through, you do the mandatory combat section, you'd repeat the puzzle. That takes some amount of time. You get to the point eventually. Dark Souls, you finish the section, you die, you come back. You can just sprint past everybody.
Yeah.
As long as you know the layout, you don't actually have to do any fighting apart from the bosses. You can get through that game with a relatively pacifist run.
Okay.
Yeah, you can run through Dark Souls, and once something is done in Dark Souls, it's done. Once you've rung the bell is rung. That's how it is.
But what about the? To clarify, I've never played Dark Souls. Jack has told me a lot about Dark Souls. I'm still unsure if I want to play Dark Souls or how long I'll actually play it if I do.
Try
so.
it, you pansy.
I will try it at some point, but not yet. I don't own it yet. So, but you lose souls. I mean, you get souls, and that's the currency to upgrade your character, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
but you don't
lose
need
that.
an upgraded character. That's the thing. You can do a level 1 run or a level 12 run or something. They're nice, but you don't need them. And sometimes you do lose a great deal of souls. And you're like, and it takes you forever to get those back. But you should have spent those souls a long time ago if you're holding on to them.
If you're not spending all your souls at a campfire because you're saving up or just because you don't want to spend them, then you're kind of making a mistake for a first time through.
Okay.
You just want to spend everything as you can so you don't lose anything when you're stockpiling.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good enough. I mean that's like the StarCraft way of playing. Keep your economy low. That means
Yes.
you're using it. I mean, that's that's the most common term I can think of, like a good strategy is just to kind of, you might not need a lot of resources, but just keep them low. That means you're using them for something, and that's better than not having them, just having them stored somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people think Dark Souls is this pinnacle of difficulty, and I really think it's just a different play style in that you have to pay attention to an enemy. You can't just run up and hack and slash it, or else it'll murder you. You have to be like, okay, it's about to attack me, I'm going to counter, or I'm just going to avoid, or I'm going to circle around. And it's one enemy, it's one random enemy, and you have to do that.
So it gets like the mentality of fighting a boss with that telegraphs attacks and such, but for every enemy.
Pretty much,
in
yeah.
a sense. I mean, some simplicity, of course. I mean,
Yeah, like not every enemy you fight will be unique. That you have like the basic hollows, and you see them; they have the same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like 3 basic hollows, they can even just kill like an advanced player pretty quickly if you just faff about or you mess up. So you do need to think before you just do any attack, really.
Yeah.
Unless you've spent 400 hours in the game and sorry.
Yeah.
Interesting.
As Ben was saying, though, it is a different play style. You're not playing Contra. You're not playing the old way of gaming where you just kill everything you see. This is a play style now where it's focus on one enemy or just ignore all the enemies.
Yeah. Sometimes you have groups of enemies, and you have to pay attention to the whole group, and it's kind of panic.
Although at one time they do aggro 3 Boulder Knights at the same time and then you just kill them all. It feels so very pleasing.
It's very satisfying. That's the wonderful thing about Dark Souls. The game doesn't change, but you feel more satisfaction from killing an enemy because you used to have a really hard time with it, and now you don't.
Yeah.
But is there some reason for that? Like, is there? Can you point down? I mean, from what I've seen though in Dark Souls, like there's something about the mechanics that make them very clear. Like the player knows exactly at all times that the rules are not going to change. Like they're always going to be like this. You know, if you can shoot a guy, if you can see a guy and shoot a guy, you can do that. It will never be like, oh, well, no, that guy is too far away, or like there's an invisible wall in between because that's a checkpoint or something. Like that's never going to change.
Yeah. Well, your arrows get less powerful the further away the enemy is, but you can still shoot them without aggroing them. So if you have a lot of arrows and the enemy doesn't heal, you can kill anything. If you have poison arrows, you can poison things, run away, and come back when the poison's worn off, poison it again, run away. You can play it very cautiously. Is it possible
to actually kill the crow that brings you from the asylum? Because I've never tried that before.
I've never tried it.
Or does it just fly off?
Well, it's never... I don't think it's in a position where you can actually hit it.
Yeah, it sits around in Firelink Shrine, and you can just shoot at it.
Well, I've never actually done that.
So
I think for Dark Souls, it does come down to just good game design. They gave you a character that's squishy. It can, from what I've seen, you can die pretty quick. But they made it to where the enemies can be handled. It isn't like they're just increasing the waves every new level.
It's not the same enemy, just more of them. It's a bunch of different enemies.
Yeah.
And they give you options, from what I understand. It isn't just, you have to go down this corridor, you have to hit this one enemy. From what I understand, you can go around and do other things.
You can lure the enemy out and then run around them. You can do a lot.
Yeah, if you don't have like the right tools, it can be a bit not railroady, a bit linear, I suppose it'd be called. But there is usually an alternate option, like you can shoot them and lure them out, or you can move forward so they start following you, then you just dodge behind them and run away because you're scared.
And there's a lot of options with the bosses. Even I mean, some of them you can trigger cutscenes, others you can trick to fall off cliffs. Like multiple bosses, you can trick to fall off cliffs. It's great.
Isn't that like the Iron Giant thing?
Yeah, it's fun. You wouldn't think a game that difficult would have really quick and simple ways to kill bosses, but it does. But you can't do it every single time. You have to play around with it. You have to figure it out.
I think the first time anyone is fighting the Iron Golem and he just like slips off the Sen's Fortress and falls to his death, it's like, well, that was certainly something.
Well, the first time I fought the Iron Golem, the first time I beat the Iron Golem, that's what he did. And I had been fighting him for so long that I was just like, sweet, I'll take it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember the first time I fought him, I walked in, got hit by the shockwave, died. And I was like, well, I'm going to turn human, and I'm going to bring this Iron Tarkus I heard so much about. And Tarkus just soloed him, because he's a guy in like heavy armour with a greatsword, an AI controlled guy, and he just killed him. I'm like, alright, this game has ways to get around being killed.
Yeah, if you're a squishy little sorcerer, you always summon your friend and have them aggro on the friend.
Yeah.
Wow. That seems mean.
You gotta be mean to the game.
It's called efficient.
Yeah, the game is mean to you, so why not return the favor?
Yeah, I guess that is fair. Like, you know, if it's fighting, well, not dirty, but it's fighting very rudely.
Well, if you're playing, there's one point where you're fighting two bosses at once.
Oh yeah, Ornstein and Smaug.
Ornstein and Smaug, and everybody's like, "Oh, I know about this guy." And
I don't know. I don't know them. I've never fought against them, but I have nightmares of them.
And you can try to go it alone, and it's really, really difficult. Or you can summon the AI, and it becomes a little less difficult. Or you can summon an actual friend, and it becomes a lot less difficult as long as you communicate.
Since this is the difficulty cast, can I have bragging rights?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Solo New Game Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gonna, sorry, bragging rights, I need to do that every
He
now and
has
again.
it recorded on YouTube, and I saw it, so...
I went through Dark Souls with a level 12 character, and then I went through New Game Plus with a level 12 character. And that was hard. The Four Kings was really just...
don't even mention the Four Kings.
Ugh. I had to solo that because I don't know anybody else who plays it on the Xbox, and it's just... Ugh. That took a lot of playthroughs to get those 4 kings, but it was really satisfying when I was finally like, "You're dead. You're dead."
It was less satisfying for me because I was playing it pre-patch, so if I had too much difficulty, it was like, I'm just gonna get Pyromancy and Iron Flesh. Now nothing can hurt me. Just two-hand the biggest weapon I can find and just beat them over the head until they die. Feels good.
So, Jacob, do you have any examples of any other games? Because we've been talking about Dark Souls a bit now.
Yeah, I'm a bit left out because I haven't played Lara Croft or Dark Souls at all. I think a really good example would be the Metro series, because because it's a shooter, but it doesn't just increase the amount of health enemy has. In fact, it actually decreases it, but also decreases your own. But what it does is just reduce the amount of ammo available to you within the game, which is pretty ingenious because it does increase the difficulty, but
yeah, I think
it doesn't, well, like other shooters. Well, you know, everyone can think of examples of them. Increasing difficulty doesn't just force the player to just shoot more and get shot less. What it does is force the player to, well, shoot less actually, and you know, if there's and seek for options where it doesn't involve you shooting at all, which is what difficulty changes should be more of, instead of just increasing enemy damage and health.
Yeah, I think that range mode is really a good addition to that kind of game because it creates this sort of dichotomy, I think would be the right word, where like human enemies, they're gonna shoot you and you'll die very quickly, so you have to use that stealth, and if you do get in a firefight, it's tense and it's difficult. Then you come to the monster enemies and it's like you have a chance to just like let go and get all the shooting out, but again you have to be careful, it's tense, because you're gonna die in a few hits, but so do they. You can kill most enemies in one shot if you shoot well.
Yeah.
It's well designed.
So, what I was wondering now, I was thinking about it now. Like we've mentioned a few different genres now. We've mentioned, we've mentioned Metal Gear Rising. We've mentioned Dark Souls. We mentioned Lara Croft. We mentioned now Metro as well. They're all, well, Metro is the only one that was a first-person shooter in this example, but the others are mostly third-person games, and I guess in a sense fighters or puzzle, I guess. So does the difficulty change, like the ways that developers change the difficulty? Does it change drastically depending on the genre? Like you said with the FPS, like the enemies might not, become like harder to kill, but maybe they need to have, either you need to be more precise, or you need to be more aware of your surroundings, for example. While a third person, you have better check of your surroundings, so maybe there's something else that's more difficult.
Yeah, I think that third person has a lot more free reign to throw more at you, because you can see it all around and you can adapt just on the fly, where first person, it might be realistic for some guy to come up behind you and stab you in the dick, but it's not fair or fun if you're just like standing there shooting, taking cover, as you do in most first person shooters nowadays, and just get stabbed in the dick. That is just not particularly fun, so they're going to put more enemies either to the front of you, or they're going to give them more health, armor, damage, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if we compare to, for example, like Mirror's Edge, I'm sure most of you have or know about Mirror's Edge.
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that was a first-person parkour game. And it relied a lot on timing, I would say. And, for example, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance and such like that also rely on timing because there's a parry mechanic instead of a dodge mechanic. And, I mean, the same thing goes for Dark Souls. You need to either block or you need to roll out of the way. And, I mean, I guess the timing for Mirror's Edge was a lot harder than it was, for example, for Metal Gear Rising or Dark Souls. Would you agree with that, or
Not at all.
not at all?
No.
No.
I don't know what it is, but I found the platforming Mirror's Edge, like, not gonna say easy, but fun and fluid, and like you had to pay attention. But there was always a lot of leeway for you to, mess up. There were a few sections where you could easily miss something if you jumped the wrong direction, but the space required to press the button in the right way was really big, I found.
And I mean, also in Mirror's Edge, I guess they had that. I guess you can call it like the Super Meat Boy and Guardians of Light respawn kind of thing. Like you respawned right away and you just continued from whatever point you were on.
Yeah.
But still, I think that FPS kind of require less precision timing in some cases than a third-person game does, because you have that wider range of view and you get a bit more leeway, or at least they can hit you with, I guess, larger radiuses or from more directions rather than from a first-person perspective. Otherwise, it would become too difficult and frustrating. And do you think that would... What if you, for example, played Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance in first-person mode? How difficult...
I would kill myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And the same with Dark Souls, like doing that with an Oculus Rift in first-person, for example.
I think I could try the bosses in Revengeance on first person, and actually, now you mention it, someone has made a first-person mod for Dark Souls.
Oh, God.
It looks really hard, but at the same time really fun, because you're a lot more in-depth, and like, if you mess up, you know, the sword comes right to your face, and it's like a bit of a surprise, but...
It's scary.
Yeah. But it does look enjoyable.
I don't know
It's
about
like
that.
when you dodge in first person in Dark Souls, like when you roll, does the camera go crazy also?
No, like, I think the camera is attached to where your character's head is, but not, like, strapped onto their face.
Or it's not mapped in the same direction as face?
Nah, so, like, when you dodge, it'll just, like, do a little roll, but you won't, like, get the full view of what your character is seeing. That would just make me throw up.
That would be horrifying.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Okay. Do we have any more examples of good and bad difficulty, for example?
I could mention Revengeance again if you want.
I think we're going to try and keep that low, because it doesn't seem like the others have played it as much as we two have.
Well, if you want to go into good and bad difficulty, there's intentional and unintentional difficulty, which is a big thing in games.
You can pick up either, Ben.
Unintentional difficulty is when the camera angle makes something difficult and you're not allowed to change it. So you can't see where the block is because you can't tell the perspective because it's a flat screen on a video game. And so you jump one direction and you're not jumping towards the block and you die. That's not good difficulty. That's just punishing the player for not knowing exactly where the block was.
But in one term, like, you're not actually punishing the player, because if the player can't control the camera, I guess then it's the game designer's fault not to put it up in the right angle to actually provide the whole view, so to speak.
I know we said we're going to try and stay away from Revengeance, but I can actually link this into bad difficulty.
Yeah, do it.
Give me a second. So, the way the targeting system works on Revengeance is that if you have, like, an attack that leads Raiden into a big direction to hit something, he will go based on what the soft lock is. Like, you have the soft lock on, the hard lock on, so he'll go towards the soft lock on. And there have been so many situations in Revengeance mode that I'm playing where, like, the soft lock is on an enemy in the ground who can one-hit me, and there's a few enemies in the sky. I jump and point the stick towards the enemy in the sky and do, like, a flying kick attack, and he flies towards the ground to hit the guy on the ground who is doing an attack animation, like, hits him, bounces off because it's Revengeance mode, gets stabbed, and I die. And it's like, this isn't my fault. This is the game's camera and soft lock just not enabling me to kick where I want to kick.
Well, I also think that actually is the actual mechanic's fault as well, because that kick can only be launched downward. Like, there's...
No, you can kick it upwards.
You can, but I think it prefers always, if there's an enemy on the ground, it will also always go down. But it is partially the lock-on targeting's fault as well.
An example of good difficulty, bad difficulty, I was just thinking back to something Ben had mentioned earlier. Because Ben had mentioned he fought the Four Kings in Dark Souls, and he felt good afterwards. And I assume, because I haven't seen him actually play that part, but you know the mechanic of the Dark Kings, you know how they play. It's just maybe small mistakes on your end, is from what I was getting. But bad difficulty is this other game we played called Fuse.
Oh god.
And the end boss was a bullet sponge with 100 different attacks.
Oh,
Jesus.
And when you 3 different attacks that just never stopped. And when you finished it, unlike Ben being happy at the at the end of his boss fight with the Four Kings, Ben and I hated this game because that ending boss fight. Because it was just bullet sponge boss, every attack coming in our direction. We were dying constantly, and there's nothing we could really do except hope we were in the right place not to get hit.
Wow.
I think that's the main difference is if you want to play more of the game afterwards, good difficulty. If you don't want to play more of the game afterwards, bad difficulty.
That is definitely how I'd say it as well. You said it much more succinctly than I ever could.
It's funny how you should mention bullet
So,
sponging. Because...
I actually have... well, would you like to add anything in, Jacob?
With the bullet sponging stuff, emphasis on bullets, because that's only the case in shooters with that being bad difficulty. Because I'm looking at the shelf with all my games on, all my 360 games, Gears of War, Call of Duty, Halo, I know, like Mass Effect or something. All it does is increase the enemy health, and it only makes you want to shoot the enemy more. Because like when I finished Gears of War, the entire trilogy on the hardest difficulty, I didn't want to play more of it because I was like, I was done with it, because I wasn't happy when I completed the entire trilogy, because it was just a grind all the way through it.
So how about this though? When does a difficult game become a punishing one? Like, is there do you have a certain limit, or like a certain key point you can point out that shows that moment in a game?
When the player doesn't have control anymore, when it doesn't matter what you do as a player, you're going to die a certain number of times before you can do something. That's when it's punishing. When it's just like, no, you can't play. But I want to play. Okay.
Do you have an example, like a specific game or situation?
Arcade games. From way back in the day, arcade games. They were designed so that they were addictive enough that you would play them, but difficult enough that you'd have to keep putting quarters in them. And you'd keep getting hit in the arcade games. And some arcade games, let's pick a random one, Turtles Through Time, that's recently got an HD remake, ties into the other cast. You have all these enemies, and they're going to punch you. Regardless of how well you play, they're going to punch you, and you're going to get hit, and you're going to lose lives. And so it's a bit punishing, because no matter how good you are, unless you're like one of those masters, you can't avoid every single attack. And so it feels a bit punishing in that your skill level is irrelevant.
On the opposite side, though, that game at least lets you respawn quickly. I think what I don't like as a gamer is when I'm pulled out of the game. It's those load times or the waypoints. They have to be reasonable. And if I have to wait a full minute and a half after every death, and I'm in a particularly tough part of the game, and I have to wait for that load time, that pulls me out. That makes me less interested every time I play the game.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who has a full-time job, and I have grad school. I have a limited time for gaming. And if it's a game that's punishing me constantly and I'm not getting to play it, I'm going to turn it off.
Yeah, I remember Kingdom Hearts 1, there was no Kingdom Hearts 1, it's an old game, the Riku boss fight around the midpoint of the game, where it was got this era of gaming where they had a lot of cutscenes that were really well done, but they hadn't implemented a skip feature. And right before the boss fight, there was maybe a 5-minute cutscene, and on difficulty mode, like hard, the boss could kill you in 2 hits or so. And I was a persistent child, so I would go into the fight, maybe spend 2 minutes fighting, get killed, have to reload my save, wait for the load, walk over, get the cutscene, do something else while it does it, and then do the fight, get killed, repeat, ad nauseum. Eventually I beat it, but it's just like, the difficulty of the fight wasn't unfair or punishing, it was good and fun, but the way they implemented the rest of the systems in the game just killed my enthusiasm for it, until the point I got to beat him and I was like, fuck this game.
It reminds me of Kingdom Hearts 2. I had a friend who got to the final boss and played it once and died, and didn't want to play it again because it was a half-hour boss fight. He kept going and going and going and going. And so he just never picked that up again.
Wow. What about
that boss
you?
fight is absurdly long.
Yeah. What about you, Jacob?
I'm so glad I missed that entire generation of old video games because I'm not old enough to have played those. And I don't know. I'm not really sure. You can just skip past me.
All right. Well,
You sound so depressed.
I'll try and I'll tell
I'm
mine.
mentioning all of these games. I haven't played most of them.
Well, I mean that's what happens when the Steam summer and winter sale happens. So
Yeah. But
And-
it doesn't matter if you hadn't played our games. Just what about your experience?
What's the question again?
is there any game that well, have you ever noticed the line between a game being just difficult but you still want to play it, or it becomes punishing and you feel like you die one too many times and then you just stop playing because it doesn't engage you anymore, like it's just frustrating.
I can't recall
now,
a
instead of
situation
difficult.
where the game is too hard and I've gone through so much time on it and then I just quit. Like if I'm set out to kill someone in a video game, I try to keep trying until I actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. It's back to the achievements. If there's an achievement where it involves me gonna kill a final boss, or something, then
I know
I'll
that
do
feeling.
it. Yeah, it's the same with what's the point of doing it if I can't show anyone and if I can't show it off to anyone.
Mm-hmm. I personally actually had a really weird one lately with Dragon Age Origins.
Yes.
That's a very good game. I think it's a very good game. I like it. I never played it, so I got it now from the winter sale and I started playing through it. But
So good.
the autosave is so bad.
Mm.
It's horrible. And I get so engaged in that game that I forget to autosave or to F5 to quick save. And that was punishing for me for so many times. I stopped it maybe, almost once per day for like a week, and I tried to play every day to get through it during the winter break. And I just got to these moments where I'd played so long, and I was like, I don't want to go through this again. Like, I just went through all this, and it was a lot of, hard fights, and I had really struggled to, keep my party alive and keep everyone healthy and, maintain relationships and quests and everything. And the autosave was so far back that I was like, I can't. I just can't. I still haven't finished it. I'm like at the end part somewhere.
I was playing it on easy, so I was playing it on easy, so I never had that problem. Oh, but there was a DLC. It was Golems of Amgarak or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was, there was an achievement to do with like defeat the Harvester on
Sorry?
a very hard difficulty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and idiotically, I was using my warrior character, and the final boss of that DLC was a melee character, and it just owned me so many times. Well, and the only reason why I defeated him was because of a fucking glitch, which made him stay in one place, and so that's the only way I could beat him. But anyway, I just forgot what the question was, so I'll just stop talking.
How old is Dragon Age now? Like 5 years?
2008, I think it was 8 or 9. It was released on.
What?
Or 10.
Really?
Or 10. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, they're
It's
developing
quite
the
old.
Dragon Age 3 now, and you figure
The
there's
Dragon
at least
No, it's 2008. It was released in 2008 because I know Dragon Age 2 was released in 2010, I think.
Okay.
Google says Dragon Age Origins November 3rd, 2009. Wow.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was close.
But I mean,
I remember playing it when I was younger. I was at the point where I liked difficulty, but I didn't think. So my solution was to just send everyone in with the highest damage they could get. So I'd be interested to see, like, if I played it again now with a thinking mind and see how different it is when you actually use your brain rather than get the biggest sword and hit the guy with the biggest sword.
hard mode, no healing items. Whoa.
That different games don't go off on this.
No, but okay, so I guess my line is when it became punishing was that it it didn't have enough of a, I can just jump back into the action again. Like, I can't do that Super Meat Boy respawn. I can't do the, what's it called? The something Isaac. Binding of Isaac. That's the word, or something like that, or Rogue Legacy, where I die constantly and can just jump in as a new heir.
Doubly so, because at release there was a memory leak, so loading screens had to take up to maybe 10 minutes.
What?
Yeah, don't buy things at release. Research them first.
Goodness. Interesting. Alright, so how about, this is probably a very difficult one, but we can try and see where we can actually come with this. But when you talk, we've been talking about single player games. Well, single player or co-op games where it's you against the AI. So what about games like, Dota 2, or what about League of Legends, or Halo Online,
Thank God, a game that I've
games
played.
that you play against other players. Like, how's that? How do you account for difficulty? Like, when is it difficult for you, or when is it punishing?
Just don't care.
You have to let go. You're going to die.
Yeah.
No, I care about my stats. How can I show off my internet dick to everyone?
Yeah, or send a stupid person to go first. Hi.
But then
You send a
if you're in a game
cautious
like
person
Dota,
to go first.
if you're in a game like Dota where you have stupid people, that ruins the entire team for you. So you gotta get this balance between, like, I want good teammates, but I want to be contributing, and this fuckhead is getting himself killed. He's feeding the carry 7 times in a row. What are you doing with your life? Get out of my game. Uninstall.
Yeah, when you have a terrible team, it's really difficult to get into the game.
Yeah.
Because in Halo, I usually have a positive kill-death spread regardless, but my team doesn't always win, so it's... I don't know, is that punishing? It's
Yes.
just one of those things.
I mean,
I think
you can't account for other people's skill in this, and I guess that's the difficult part. You can't. I guess, like you said, you just have to have, I guess, an iron will and perseverance to just keep going, no matter who. If others are playing bad, then you can't do anything against it, or you can't do anything with that unless just tell them, give them tips or whatever.
What got to me in some of those games was quitters. People, if you're on a team versus team thing and you have people who quit, then it's really difficult to win at that point.
I agree.
Just sheer numbers. And that's really punishing at that point. It's just
true.
Which I think...
But it feels so good when you do beat bigger teams.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
when it's 2 versus 4 and you just slaughter them, you get a lot more satisfaction out of it, but that happens so rarely.
Yeah.
But some games, I haven't played MOBAs, so I don't know about League of Legends or Dota 2. But for example, StarCraft, they have leagues. I'm a Bronze League player because I'm not very good.
Me too.
So fortunately, I don't play against punishing Pro League. I don't play against the people that Husky casts on his channel. It's the Bronze League heroes that I play against, and that's why I don't feel bad, because sometimes I win.
Yeah, I think it's a very good thing they've now stacked the skills so that if you're really good, you get put with really good people. And so there's a more even chance of winning and you're not just running around killing noobs all day. Though that is fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things about multiplayer they've got to consider when it comes to it is always the learning curve. Like, if a game is easy to learn and just easy to do, then it's going to be a lot easier to play. Like, the comparison that I'm thinking of is CSGO, for example, versus Call of Duty. And like Call of Duty, if someone is in your crosshair, you can just, automatic weapon, hold down trigger, pretty much guaranteed to kill them. CSGO, the shooting is a lot more precise, I guess the word would be. And I think that does alienate a lot of people, that you have to have that level of precision.
But it's also a weird dichotomy with that. Like, as you said, you need to have a lot more precision in Counter-Strike Go, for example, or CS Source or whatever. But in Call of Duty, you can aim down sights, which give you higher precision. But in Counter-Strike Go, you can't. I mean, there's some guns that have scopes and stuff, but there's no iron sights, as far as I know, unless they changed it in CSGO.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, so it's like a weird dichotomy. You still need higher precision in a game that doesn't allow you to always get that higher precision.
crouch. That's all they're gonna give you, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's, I don't know. It's a weird thing I've been thinking about, and I don't know why it is like that. Do you have any ideas, guys?
Probably just like they have the older ways when nobody was using iron sights, and Valve being Valve, they find something they like, they stick with it, and it seems to work so far. The games that they make are massively popular, and they have tournaments about them specifically for these games. So why change it?
True. It's like if you create a grand design, then why change it?
Yeah, and
true.
Ben and I picked up on that with the new Halo. Well, with Halo 4, a lot of the maps have gotten smaller. And I felt like in Reach and 4, they started designing maps around small pro teams. Like they were hoping to encourage that kind of a sport. And so I felt like they kept making maps that suited that kind of gameplay rather than the old, fun, big Halo maps that were just kind of crazy.
Well, there's a big difference between the large maps and the smaller maps in that if you're in a small map, it's an all-out brawl. You spawn instantly, you go find something, you kill it in a spawn of 30 seconds. In a larger map, you can have a lot more control over your tactics, you can hide in a place, you can go get the sniper rifle, you can sneak around, and if you find somebody, you don't necessarily have to kill them, or if they find you, they don't necessarily kill you. You can run away. And that was the big thing I enjoyed about large maps. Smaller maps, this isn't as true.
There's also Oh no, go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry, Jay.
I was gonna say, learning the maps is a big factor as well in difficulty.
Yeah.
Like, if a map is very complicated and has the random drop spawns that I think Halo has, I don't know.
It does.
But then you got to be able to adapt to, if I go over here, can the sniper be here? What if it's over there? How will I change the situation to benefit me rather than the enemy team?
Mm-hmm. But there's also the basics of shooters where, okay, there's a sniper, I'm going to find cover, I'm going indoors or something.
Yeah, the basics will get you through, the advanced stuff will get you to the top of the leaderboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when we're talking about multiplayer games, the level of complication with the game determines how difficult it is going to be. Because if you're playing StarCraft and you don't understand all those mechanics, I feel like the more mechanics it is, you have to be someone who invests a lot of time to be good. And so the difficulty scales down for you, but for someone who's new to it, with all those mechanics, you're just going to be beaten all the time. So if you can get a multiplayer game that scales down the mechanics, I feel like it's a lot more fun. I don't know if anyone's played, I think it's called Chivalry.
Chivalry, yes.
Sorry, I need to drink some water. I can't talk. But it was just on Steam. That's a game that has simple mechanics.
Yeah.
You jump in, you die, you get back into it. Anyone can learn it. And so even if I'm losing, I don't feel like I'm being punished for losing because I haven't learned these complex rules.
But I mean, in that case, it's also a term of complexity isn't necessarily more difficult, but complexity can mean that a game is more punishing. But it's
you
not.
have a greater learning curve with it, and it becomes more difficult to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like it can be hard to learn a new map on Halo or Battlefield or whatever. But that complexity is soon just gone, because after you've learned it, then it's it's like walking around your neighborhood. It's like the same kind of thing. It's just a steep learning curve, as you said.
Yeah. And to argue for the other side, if you are someone who likes that game and you learn the rules, you're going to have fun with it, and you don't want to lose those rules. It's just, the difficulty for the beginner player is going to be harder, and you have to have something to keep them in so you don't lose them.
I feel like Dark Souls is one of those games where you have a very steep learning curve, but after that, it's not so difficult, and it doesn't feel as difficult. You may die a few dozen times, but it's not like, oh, grr, it's so hard. It's like, okay, no, next time I'm going to avoid that giant fireball.
Yeah, it balances out very well once you get to that pinnacle. So, let's move away from multiplayer a bit. It's kind of hard to talk about. I was thinking about just general games I played. New Game Plus. It's a bit of a strange topic in that a lot of times it makes things very much easier, but a lot of times it changes things to be harder as well. Have you guys played any particularly good examples of New Game Plus games?
All I can think of is Dark Souls.
I haven't.
For example, I'm not going to mention Revengeance even though I could, Borderlands 2.
Oh.
It's this strange kind of game in that it's like RPG focused and you gotta do this and this and this, stats and such. But New Game Plus, once you load it up, if you're on solo and you're not playing the right class and the right build, you're dead.
Yes.
Because the enemies do absurd damage and you do no damage.
Yeah.
And if a bullet touches you, your shield is gone. I think that's kind of the wrong way to approach New Game Plus.
Well, they really emphasize the multiplayer element for the longer you play. The longer you play in Borderlands, the more they emphasize it. Like Terramorphous, they really want that to be a raid boss.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do a raid, so I didn't fight the boss. Well, I fought the boss. I lost to the boss. I didn't beat the boss.
As someone who is notoriously antisocial when it comes to most people, I played about 80 hours of Borderlands solo, and I have gotten maybe past the first section in New Game Plus because it's just... It's not that it's too hard, it's just that it's too punishing for playing by yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, just to clarify, when you say New Game Plus, you mean the True Vault Hunter mode, the Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, and so on.
Yeah, True Vault Hunter.
So, True Vault Hunter, you've only gone past, like, the first part of it?
I've gone to Sanctuary on my Gunzerker main character, but after that it was like, these enemies are taking too much damage, I'm going down so much, I'm just not having fun because it's made for multiplayer.
Okay.
And I don't play with other people.
Okay.
I have that
I
exact
guess that
problem.
might be a fault on the designer's part that they didn't accommodate that, a single person should have just as much fun as a group will. I mean, somehow
I think
kind
it's
of
kind of...
balance it. I don't know.
For those who have played New Game Plus, because I haven't, do all they do is just ramp up the difficulty of the enemies, or do they add new mechanics to make the game different from the first playthrough?
They just shoot it right up.
Well,
Yeah,
you
they
get to
just up
keep
the,
all
up
your
the amount
old
of health,
things.
up the amount of bullets, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole
I
deal
feel
with...
like that's a missed opportunity, though. If New Game Plus should be a new game, it should be... You should have a few different mechanics or something changed, rather than just... It takes an extra minute to shoot a guy before he dies.
No, but I mean, that's the whole change. Is also like, especially in Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and as in last time's podcast when Fizz mentioned the Deus Ex Human Revolution playthrough, you get to keep your skills. I mean, that's what the plus is. You have all your skills from when you finished the game the first time.
Ah, okay.
And I mean, that's usually in the RPG games. I mean, in Borderlands, you have all your talents, you have all your gear, everything. So, I mean, you still have the end game gear at the beginning of the game. And all your skills. But
now the starting enemies are end game enemies or above.
Yeah, so
I
it
mean,
seems irrelevant at that point. There's no point where you're like, I am God, and you're running around killing everything. It's just, oh shit, this guy's really, really big.
I think going back to Dark Souls, it introduces the idea of New Game Plus without adding particularly much really well, because enemies get like a teeny tiny health boost, but they get a massive damage boost.
Okay.
So it's like, you finish our game on normal, that's good for you, you're pretty good at the game. Now try it, and if you fuck up once, you fucking die.
Yeah.
And we hate you.
I mean,
and that's just a good way to do it, because it's like, this is a game about learning how to approach things and being careful, so prove that you can.
Yeah, they keep the mechanic, the major draw for the game, the gameplay. It stays the same in that you still want to learn, you still want to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Jacob, do you have any experiences with New Game Plus?
Yeah, most games do it pretty badly.
Really?
Yeah, no, my only experience is Borderlands 2, and you pretty much covered that. Yeah, it's true, Borderlands 2 does it horribly, and Mass Effect 2 and 3, which is okay. In fact, I don't really think they actually do anything to it.
What changed in Mass Effect? Did it just have, like, you have the same level and stuff on your character?
I didn't think they had New Game Plus in those games, did they?
Yeah, they did. I think all it does is, like, the money you start off with increases.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did it have New Game Plus? Because I thought you just, after you moved from 1 to 2, you brought some stuff with you.
But
Like,
does that count, though?
I remember 1 definitely did, because you couldn't get to the level cap and get max Renegade Paragon without doing a few playthroughs, but I'm not sure about 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2. I definitely when you do New Game Plus, and then you use the character you already complete the game with, all it does is you keep all of your weapons, level, skills, and stuff, but it resets your Paragon Renegade stuff. And I think that's probably it. I think that's all they change.
All right.
So, it seems that from what you said about Dark Souls, that the best way to actually make a New Game Plus is not to necessarily buff up the enemies. Like, not in the same way of like, okay, let's give the enemies 100% more health and 100% more damage. But rather just like, let's tweak it. Let's make them have only 10% more health, like in Dark Souls, but their damage is 190% more damage for each hit, like for basic enemies, for example. Because that means that if you mess up, you will mess up that much more.
Yeah.
And then it's still your fault for not, being strategic and moving along carefully and stuff like that.
It does change from genre to genre, but, and I'm going to say it because I haven't said it for a while, Revengeance. It approaches the New Game Plus very well in that it's just hard mode unlocks very hard mode unlocks Revengeance mode, and as long as you do continue once you finish the game, you can bring over your other stuff.
Okay.
And like hard mode to very hard mode, it's not just enemies have more health and do more damage. They do. Health isn't very considerable amounts of more. Damage is. But it's also, from earlier points on, you get introduced to later game enemies. So these enemies that you've been fighting rarely in the starter mode, you've learned some of their skills and some of the mechanics, but you haven't really had to. You have to learn what they're going to do, how they attack, when to do your stuff, because otherwise you are just going to die, and it brings in a draw of playing the game, playing it well, parrying, dodging, doing stuff good, whilst just making it harder from a base level.
So it basically forces you to use all the skills and abilities you had at the end of the game when you fought Armstrong. Sorry, spoilers if anyone cares.
Bleep that out, Fizz.
I don't care.
When you fight at the end, though, like you have all, you have the parry, you have the offensive, defensive / thing, and you have to basically at the start. I'm guessing that you probably meet the enemies that wield katanas as well, and they will probably show up.
They show up in the second level, and they can one hit kill you with a kick.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I thought. Like they are one of the most annoying ones in my opinion because they just keep parry, and then
But another thing it does well is that in the earlier modes, enemies will have an indication that they're going to do a certain attack, like an attack that you can parry that have a red glint in their eye that shows up really well, so you can parry that.
Yeah.
On an unblockable attack, they'll flash yellow for a bit.
Yeah.
And in very hard and Revengeance mode, it doesn't remove that completely, but some attacks they won't have the flash or the shine. So you've got to learn what to do. Like the boss fight 2 fights before Armstrong. I'm not going to say the name because spoilers.
The one you hate?
No, the one after that.
Oh, okay.
Not one after that.
Oh, okay, I know which one.
Yeah. They have a move where they'll just do like a quick little hit that can do a lot of damage. And in hard, I think the glint is there. In very hard and Revengeance, it is not. So when you're doing for a no damage run like I was trying to do and did succeed, that one attack can just mess me up completely because I hadn't learned what to do. And it makes me learn the game mechanics as a whole rather than just for that fight.
I can see that.
That's a big thing of what hard mode does, is it brings you in depth into a game. You have to learn the mechanics a little more. You have to pay a little more attention. Going back to Dark Souls, because I just like that game, you memorize all the corridors and all the hallways and all the passages, and I can't think of any other game other than like 16-bit old school games where I've done that. Where it's just, because a lot of the times you just run through an area and you're through it. You didn't pay attention to where you took a left, where you took a right, the big boulder, the ferns, or anything like that.
Unless anyone else has anything to say, you just gave me a fantastic segue.
Oh. Well,
I just...
yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to say real quick, talking about Revengeance and games similar to that, as a game designer, there's something you can take away from that, and that you have different types of enemies that do different type of things. If you want to increase difficulty without punishing the player, have variety in the game.
Yes.
Because if you're playing Gears of War, and you have 3 types of enemy, you don't have a lot in your bag to work with. So you have to beef them up. And that's not fun difficulty. Having different types of enemies and having to remember how to do things, that's a type of difficulty that I don't feel punished for. I'm getting something out of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, if Revengeance was just fight these 3 different enemy types over and over, I wouldn't have played it as much as I did, but because there's so many different enemy types, then you have to use your own unique method to take on each of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the guys with the big katanas, I use the giant scissors on them. The big gorilla fellas, I wait till I have my rage mode, basically, and then use that to just kill them. The guys with the hammers, I parry and dodge. It's all very fluid, and it teaches you how to use mechanics well without, unless you're on the hardest modes, without killing you instantly for not learning them.
That's very true.
So, if we turn back time, then I can use that fantastic segue that Ben just gave me.
Alright.
Speaking of 16-bit games, I was thinking about the difference between how old games approach difficulty and how new games approach difficulty, and a lot of people say that new games are getting easier. Is that true? Why? Is it just we're getting better?
There's a couple mechanics at play here, and I've heard some wonderful arguments on it, actually, in that you have... Back in the day, you had arcade games, like I said earlier, where you were supposed to put money in it. So it's supposed to be difficult enough that you put money in it. And the first console games were made by the same designers, so they were still that level of difficulty. I feel like games are getting easier so that they're more approachable, but they have options for difficulty for those people who still enjoy hard mode.
I think games are getting a bit harder because most of the games I've played on my 360, I have completed them on the hardest difficulty, and I still can't beat Mega Man 2. I can only beat Flashman stage, and then that's it. That's all I can do. Yeah. Well, that is a hard difficulty because I've got the Japanese version, and so it's locked on hard difficulty.
Oh yeah.
Ouch.
Mega Man is a great series. I mostly played Mega Man X, but it's a great series that if you just play it, it has a set difficulty. If you want to make it easier, you learn about the Robot Masters and what type of weapons to use against them. But that's where you have to take the time to make it easier. And so I like Mega Man for that reason, that here's the difficulty of the game. If you want it easier, you can do this to make it easier. But otherwise, here's a challenging game to play.
You mean you can basically make Mega Man into Meta Man if you catch my drift here, but basically learn about the masters and that you need to
use. Because each master has a weakness, and you can choose to fight any master at any time in any order. And so you can either just go into the game, or you can spend the time to make the game easier.
By going in a certain order to get the right weapon for the next one,
yes.
and the next one, and the next one, yeah.
I think the internet has definitely sort of ruined that sense of mystery that a lot of games had with the difficulty. Back when Mega Man got released, I imagine, I didn't play it myself because I was young and stupid.
I wasn't even born.
You had all the kids playing the games and they fight the bosses, they get their shit wrecked. So, they'll try some other bosses, they'll try the weapons, they can't figure out. Next day, they'll go to school and there's this little huddle of children just jibber jabber jibber jabber jabber, fight this boss fight, this secret, that hidden move of the Hadouken. And now it's if this boss is killing you, just Google it. Why wouldn't you Google it? Because it's just, it's easy. I think that sense of mystery has definitely been lost as communication has developed. So now it's gone to the point where developers aren't looking for the mystery anymore, they're just looking for high difficulty is punishing.
Yes.
That's true. I mean, I definitely can see that we have gotten better at playing games because, there's a lot more in store for us now. There's a lot more games on Steam and all kinds of platforms that you can access, and even on your phones and stuff like that, even though I don't play that at all because I'm horrible at it. But, I mean, I think that game developers expect more from us. I think they believe that we also evolve with the games themselves. Like, a better game gets better graphics, better mechanics, I don't know, better art style, everything like that. And so, logically, the player should also be better in a sense. We've played games like this before and stuff.
I think that's very true. I remember way back in the day when I was playing Halo 2, and when people played snipers, they would stand still. And you think of that nowadays, if somebody's standing still, you shoot them. You just shoot them in the head. They're gone. It's over.
Yeah.
But back then, it was one of those things. Okay, I'm going to look around. And they stand still and they look in their circle. Nowadays, people strafe left and right, and it's an entire meta thing that over time individuals learned it, and then group herd mentality learned it, and it's in the games now. And now the levels are designed so that you can strafe easier.
Yeah, I mean, even that for other game genres like shoot 'em ups, like Jamestown is one of my favorites. I mean, the simple rule for any shoot 'em up is never stop shooting. Never.
Definitely.
I mean, simple rules like that. I mean, people most likely, I don't know, I wasn't born in the 70s or whatever, so I don't know if, people played in the old arcade machines, like, if they would actually just kind of do precision things or something like that, but I guess simple tips and tricks, kind of, you can call them, have developed over time that make us better, in a sense, in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That gave me the idea of, like, what if there was companies that specifically went out to approach other games that are difficult, but change mechanics drastically. So if they're playing a shoot 'em up, like, scrolly thing, and they gave you an ammo count, how would people approach that, and how would it change just how difficult these games can be? Like Toho with an ammo count. Oh god, would that just be impossible, or
Yes.
how would it work?
Or take another example, since we love Metal Gear Revengeance, you and I. For example, if the sword would have a durability meter.
No, don't even talk about that. Get out of my podcast.
It's like you would have to pick up a new sword after
God.
so many parries or hits on enemies.
Jeez.
I mean, that
It would
would
be like Dark
insane.
Souls.
Actually, it'd be like No More Heroes. No More Heroes did basically exactly that.
But you had to.
Oh wait,
yeah.
so you went right into like a jack off motion when he wants to recharge his sword.
Oh yeah, you had to do the obscene motion.
Yeah.
Right.
But, despite the motion, it is the idea of your melee weapon has temporary ammo that you have to reload. And now that I think about it, that game was really good and really fun.
It was.
So it can be
Pretty much
approached.
sold like 50,000 copies or something.
Yeah. That's a shame.
I don't know though. Like, I mean, like you said, Ben. Like the old games had that. You're supposed to spend quarters. It's just supposed to keep continuing, like the Metal Slug games, for example, and stuff like that. But I don't know, the new ones like Risk of Rain, for example, a game I try but suck at, or Rogue Legacy, like I feel like they have that old game mentality of, keeping on, like,
Well, it really
wanting
depends.
you to keep continuing.
It really varies game to game these days, because some people really like that mechanic of it's difficult enough that I'm going to die a few times, and that's okay. And other people don't want to think, they just want to let go into a fight, and brawl to death. Everything. They just want to be this uber-powered character that murders everything and can just walk through the game. And it really depends on your playstyle, what you want to do.
And we're really fortunate that we live in a time with Steam and other options online,
definitely.
or just Flash games online.
So much variety.
If you want a hard game, go find a hard game. But for people like my younger sister who's just getting into gaming, it's kind of good that she has a Nintendo console. She can get familiar with mechanics, she can get familiar with games, and then we can scale it up. I can start giving her suggestions based on her playstyle, what she wants to play. Like, if her level of difficulty is she prefers platforms, but she hates spending time shooting things that take 100 bullets, I can gear her in the games that have that. And it's Steam, so it won't cost me more than a few bucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, that Nintendo point, that's kind of interesting, because like Mario, for example, there's this... the whole stigma towards Mario is that it's kids' game, it's easy, it's simple. But once you get past the base finishing the game, and not necessarily New Game Plus, sorry, but you unlock the really hard levels. Because I've played like a lot of Mario games, and there's Galaxy, I think Mario Mario Brothers 3. They all have these really difficult levels once you got past the base stuff. So it's possible to have games that have the easy baby casual stuff, whilst having the tear your throat out hardcore, whatever you want to call it stuff.
It's been true in Mario games for a while, actually. I remember Super Mario World had a secret little star level, and then you got through that and you got these 8 really difficult levels. Or at least they seemed difficult at the time.
You can go back and play them, and they're just like the easiest thing you've ever done.
Well, I played them so much when I was a kid, I've memorized them, so
Right.
I don't know how difficult they actually are.
So, Jesse, I think we know what your job is now. Go get to a Mario World and see how difficult levels really are.
I've got enough games in my backlog right now.
Fair enough.
I've got Super Mario World right over there.
I went from one Steam game, and then after the Christmas sale, I think I had like 30.
Yeah, it'll do, man.
Yeah.
It was his first Steam sale.
What?
Oh.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, you poor thing.
I'm
Grow up
actually
so fast.
I'm actually probably getting rid of my Xbox console in favor of making my own Steam machine.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
That's probably
Viva la
best.
Revolution.
Yeah.
I know, right?
It is weird though for me to think that I just said that, you know, with Nintendo equals easy. Because like I was playing Donkey Kong Country not too long ago.
Which one?
And
The first one.
the Super Donkey Kong.
Okay.
I don't know how many they made since then. And I thought to myself, this is an old Nintendo game. This can't be that hard.
Oh, dear.
And I played it, and I forget that if you move fast, it's kind of like Dark Souls. If you move fast, you're going to die a lot.
Yeah, it's
You
not
kinda have to-
Sonic.
Yeah, you have to take the screens a little bit at a time because it is, you know, two hit kill, and the enemies can hit you so fast. You have to be a little more careful. And at the time when I was a child, I probably played in that style. But games today become a little bit faster. That I kind of expect to move that quickly through a game, and then I just realized, oh no, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was.
So, do you have anything to add, Jacob?
What was the question again?
The question was, do you have anything to add? Just to whatever.
Well, in regards to old games compared to new ones, I guess.
Old games are hard. New games are super easy, even on hard mode.
Fair enough.
All right. Well,
Let's try Revengeance mode. Take me on, Scrub.
oh
1v1.
God, Scrub. Shots were fired.
I don't know, because I always played Star Fox 64, and then Ben lent me his copy of the original Star Fox. That game was a lot harder than the 64 version.
God, this
Punished
Star
you.
Fox 64, so good.
Well, the original Star Fox, I think, was an arcade game first. I'm not sure on that. It seems like it has the same layout and everything. It was probably designed by people who did arcade stuff. And so it's really hard to get through with those few lives you have.
Yeah, that seems
Now
true.
that I think about this whole arcade approach I've been talking about, it seems like N64, PS1 sort of era was when that arcade mentality kind of fade.
Yes.
Like the 2D platformer that was so common on the SNES and such really kind of vanished as soon as 3D graphics came around. I mean, it's coming back kind of recently with the Kickstarters and Steam, like
Yeah,
mentioned,
indie games
but-
have done wonderful things for it. It's just
Yeah. And Mighty Number 9 is going to probably have a load of people jacking that off, which is, you know,
Yep.
really good.
Mm-hmm.
People like it.
All
But
right.
it definitely seems that sort of thing has vanished for the most part.
So I have one last question from my part at least. And how about we start with Jacob this time?
Okay.
So, lives versus life bar. Which one is the more difficult one? Like a one-hit kill and you have lives, or you have a life bar and continues?
I think life bars are harder because, okay, usually games with life bars are do have the difficulty changes, and if the difficulty changes and your life bar stays the same, then you're just gonna die from one hit anyway. But if you get hit by one thing and then you die, it doesn't matter what the difficulty is. You're still at the same level of cautiousness to not try to get killed, because if with health or with a health bar you feel like, oh well, I can take 1 or 2 hits, it's fine, and then you just continue on, and you won't be as cautious. And obviously if you're not that cautious, you will get yourself killed. So.
So I'm actually going to leave you to last, Jack, because I know you have a lot to say about this, probably.
Maybe a little bit.
So what about you, Jesse? What about you? Which one is more difficult, lives or life bar?
I feel like anytime I play a game that has lives, like the little Mario heads in the corner, it's usually those are platform games. And those are games that I get a little impatient with, and I make a lot of mistakes.
Like Super Meat Boy, Braid, or Mario, stuff like that, you mean?
Yeah. Whereas I think I'm a little more cautious with the life bar, because if I see numerals, like I see a 7 or an 8, I'm telling myself I have a lot of lives. If I have a life bar, I'm watching my health go down. I become a little more cautious. So I think I get a little too brazen when I have lives. Whereas with a life bar, I have a visual representation that, in my mind specifically, is telling me, hey, you got to watch out. I'm watching it go down. I don't want it to go down any further.
All right. So you consider that more difficult?
Yeah, and it's the way my mind interprets what's on the screen. I'm interpreting that life bar as being more important than numerals of how many lives I still have.
Okay.
What if the life bar has numbers next to it, though? Does your mind just explode?
I don't know whether to be cautious or not.
Funny enough, my favorite game is Red Dead Redemption, and that has neither.
Oh, okay.
This goes why.
I guess I could...
You get kind of the reddish, not the horrible Mass Effect 2 red that fills up the screen.
The veins.
Not as bad as
Or
Modern Warfare.
actually,
Jelly splooshes all over your face.
Yeah.
Or as the spoiler warning show calls it, the Elmo effect. But and you just get the screen turns a different shade of red and brown the more you get shot, and it doesn't take a lot to die in that game. So I kind of like that, in that I know that you can die pretty quick, and that if you start seeing color change like that, you stop, you watch out, you be careful, and I tend to live a little bit longer. And for me, it's all visual representation.
So would you say that's the easier way? The easiest one for you?
It would be the easiest because I become the most cautious.
Okay, because I mean, if you still have that visual representation, like the damage feedback or the Elmo effect, as you call it, on the screen, that still means you have a life bar. It's not there, but it's still like.
and those two are kind of together in my mind.
So is that the more difficult one?
Those are the less difficult for me because I have something to look at and I become more cautious because of it.
Okay.
I become more brazen when I have like lives.
I think one thing that can make a big difference is like in a live system where one hit kills you, and the health bar system where you have that amount of life. There's always this caution that you don't know how much damage an attack will deal.
True.
So if you want to find out, you're going to have to let yourself get hit, and that's going to make it more difficult. So I think it can make it more cautious if you're just trying to avoid every attack. And I know you said you were leaving to last, Martin, but I do...
Go ahead, just
no.
walk over me.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
it's a good segue, though, so go in. I mean,
no, that was just me mentioning that.
All right, because I thought you
finish.
I thought you were going to go somewhere with that, but okay.
No, I just mentioned that.
All right. Well, what about you, Ben? Lives or life bar? Which one is more difficult?
I would say lives is probably more difficult simply because when you die, you may have a continuum left, you may not, and it's just over at that point. It's the Mario thing of you finally get to level the world 7 or something, and you die all the way. You go back. Well, you just go back. You have to restart. Versus a life bar with something like Zelda, where you're, like Jesse said, I'm keeping tabs on the life. If it goes down, oh crap. If it's all the way at the top and I get the sword that goes pew, 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 like with the Super Nintendo Zelda, I'm going to keep it at the top as long as I possibly can to keep that power and be a lot more cautious.
Actually, I'm not in that mentality because when I have a full health bar, well, I was never in that era of Legend of Zelda. Shoot lasers out of your swords if you have full health. I wasn't in that. But when I have full health, I wouldn't mind to take 1 or 2 hits. But if I have, and then I'd only be cautious if my health bar is really low. So and then I only start to be cautious if I'm near death anyway. So that just, well, it's really my fault for making it hard for myself. But
Well, I think for the Zelda example that you brought up, it's a great way to make you cautious on both ends of the spectrum. Like, I'm at full health. My sword now has a projectile attack. I want to keep this because it makes it really good against a lot of enemies. Like, I don't have to go close to do this, little stabby stab. And I mean, then you want to keep that, and that makes you almost as cautious as if you were down to 1 life or 1 health. And I mean, that's a great way to emphasize both ends of the spectrum, that they're equally important. In that game, I thought that was made really, really well. Yeah. Jesse, do you want to just bring that in real quick, what you just told us?
Huh? Oh, what I typed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just thinking what Ben said, like with the Zelda sword.
Right. Yeah, that is actually really true. Like the power.
That gives you a reason to be cautious, to keep your health, because when you get that sword and you have this constant shooting ability, or as I typed, Lara Croft, the Guardian of Light, you get into this little power mode, and if you have the right relic that gives you ammo regen, and you're carrying a rocket launcher, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to hit me, and I will shoot every little minion in the face with a rocket so they don't touch me.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, too, it becomes a little bit broken where you can get a relic that gives you, like, power shot, scatter shot, health regen, and ammo regen all in one.
And a rocket launcher.
But I mean, as you said, the mechanic is great because it's the relic mode allows you to be cautious because you get it after a certain amount of kills or points, technically. And
the relic mode is a little different because that is a game where you're probably not going to take as much damage from minions. You're going to take more damage from the puzzles.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, do you want to be as risky now since you have the relic meter full? Because you're going to lose that and maybe get a big disadvantage in the next fight or something like that. So it's a really good...
or do you want to have fun with it now because the next puzzle is possibly going to damage you?
Yeah, like the stupid labyrinth with the rocks falling from the ceiling or something.
Or you accidentally rolling the boulder onto your teammate.
Or that, yeah, the spiky boulder.
Accidentally.
All right, so Jack...
No, the boulders were accidental, the mines were not.
Yeah, it's a bad time when you get the rocket launcher and the grenade launcher and all the other launchers that you have. But what about you, Jack?
Live systems can go fuck themselves.
Okay. So
let me elaborate why.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to bring up Mario, I'm going to bring up Ratchet and Clank.
Okay.
Right, Ratchet and Clank, I start a level, I'm getting through, it's hard, I die, whatever. It gets like mid-checkpoint, and it's a really hard bit, so... I keep on dying, but it brings me back, and I'm fine. I get through eventually, and I don't get frustrated. Mm-hmm. Mario, I get to that midpoint. I'm doing the dying thing occasionally, but I get to midpoint. It's really hard. I die all the time, and it's like, hey, you gotta go back, and all that stuff you did really well, do it again. And I'm just like, why? why do you want me to do this again? I've proven that I can do it. I just can't do this bit after it. Why do I need to prove that I can do the bit before it to do the bit after it? Because I've clearly shown that I can.
Do it again.
It's a pointless exercise of tedium and frustration that causes me to just want to shut down the game, even though it can be fun.
It's an incentive for you to try harder. Right?
But
It's an incentive for you to memorize the level, and then...
Well, this
it's asking me to memorize the bit that I can't finish.
This
It's like,
doesn't
what?
sound like so much of a problem with the lives as with the waypoint.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
the idea of continues.
I mean, I understand that with the Magic or the Magic games. No, sorry, the Mario games. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Mario, really. I've never really been.
Sacrilege.
I'm sorry. I like the Galaxies, but I've never really had much time to get to play them. Really, I've just played them with friends now and then. I only own a PC, so. But I can see your point though, that the lives of having to forcefully, like, okay, you died at a later point, you go back to a checkpoint, now it's like this huge gap and you are at one hit kill. But it's also unfair because it starts you with not the power-ups you might have had at that point. It's like, okay, maybe you got the Fire Flower up to that point. That means you have 3 hits before you die.
Yeah.
And I mean, then you might start over and then you're little and you have just 1 hit and then you die.
I'm fine with the idea of one-hit kills in games like that, but it is just, I think, lives being adapted with the continue system, wherein if you fail on a bit that you are, like, you don't know what's going to be happening, and it forces you to redo the stuff that you've proven you can do, that just really gets me, and that is wasting my time.
Okay, so it's redundant.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
That's a good
instead,
word.
for example, if we take Super Meat Boy compared to Mario, Super Meat Boy have shorter levels, but you still have to start from the beginning.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about Super Meat Boy, is everything is really short, and once you figure out what to do, you can pretty much just repeat that process.
Yeah.
And getting to the next bit takes maybe 5 seconds if you know the level, where in Mario, getting to the midpoint again can take you maybe like 3 minutes, even if you're just like doing it well, because the levels are that long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, making a restart is fine for games like Meat Boy and insert other platformer here that I haven't played. But for games with longer levels, the lives continue system is redundant, like you said, because it's just bleh.
Yeah. So I actually thought you were going to bring up before when you interjected about the life bar, about how you have to be careful about how much damage a hit will do.
Vengeance again.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said,
Alright.
you told me how much damage like one of Armstrong's like quick time events does.
So let me tell you a little story. I'm playing Revengeance. I go in Revengeance mode. Damn near everything in one hit kills you. I've got all the life upgrades, and I'm like max health, and the weakest enemy doing like an attack will get me like to minimal health. So boss fights result in a situation where I have to learn to not get hit at all, because otherwise I die, I have to restart. And it's a weird sort of way in that the life bar becomes sort of redundant at the higher difficulties, but I don't know what I'm gibbering on about.
But
I'd like Revengeance, go get it.
yeah, but it's still like it's weird that the game turns into basically a live system at that point. That's like one fuck up and you are out.
Technically, there's like 2 enemies that can't kill you in one hit, so I think it's still necessary.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good, in quotation marks. So, I think that we've all discussed our issues and enjoyment of different and difficult games, and that some games can be just difficult, but some games can be punishing if they're executed wrong. Anyone have anything else they want to say?
Can I just say to get Revengeance again?
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Get
you just
Revengeance
did.
again.
I would say
Just
to a lot of
remember,
game
kids.
developers. I would say to a lot of game developers, fix your camera angles. That doesn't make the
Oh,
game
yes.
fun. It makes it. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. If the camera was your friend in a lot of games, then we would not be frustrated. We would enjoy it like we do Dark Souls.
yes.
Although sometimes Blighttown, Dark Souls camera, no,
Okay.
not fun. If you played it, you know what I'm talking about.
Were you going to say something,
And ju-
Jesse?
Yeah, and just remember, kids, have fun. Because if you're not having fun, as Sonic says, that's no good.
Fun is for
plays
casuals
a
and
Sonic
faggots.
And if you can't have fun, you gotta go fast.
Yeah, just have fun. If the game's hard, have fun with it. If it's too hard and you're not having fun, play another game. There are so many options out there.
Or don't be like Jack and have to play on hard. It's okay. You can put it down to normal or easy.
Shush!
If you're
I
playing
have
co-op with your
achievements.
friends, it's okay to play normal. You don't have to play hard with them.
I have
Exactly.
achievements that 0.4% of the people in the world have. Don't insult me.
And there's a lot of games where you could actually switch the difficulty during the game itself.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have
Exactly.
to start over.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
If it
Jack
hinders you
isn't gonna
from...
go up to your Jack's not gonna go to your window and laugh at you.
No,
I might actually.
he's
I'm not
British.
really that much of a
Oh, no.
hard mode gamer.
I live in
I'm
the same
just.
country as him.
Oh shit!
I forgot he's British. He'll come down the chimney.
Yeah.
Jacob, you better put every game you play on now from now on to hard, because otherwise I'm fucking coming for you.
Well, I'll just remove the windows from my room.
Shit. Foiled again.
So, everyone...
Yeah, we should wrap up.
I guess we should say thank you for joining us for another enjoyable episode. And my name is Martin, or Swamp, or the Swede. And I guess we'll all just say bye.
We'll see you guys
Bye.
next time.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
hope to have you on some more, Ben. All right. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.